generative AI. It's something that you hear it, and I feel like I just get a bad taste in my mouth. They really need to figure out a way to rebrand this. What do you guys think about just this space in general?
I think it's super fun. I took not the deepest dive, but a deep dive yesterday and came up with some really fun stuff on Dolly and have been thinking about all of the incredible applications of it. And it's something that I understand that can be applied in a way that's actually beneficial to people in a way that the metaverse doesn't. There are other technologies being built out there and gold rushes happening. And what I love about generative AI is that there aren't any clear kind of financial reasons for pursuing it. Like there is, but also it feels like people are pursuing it because it's an important and interesting technology and not an opportunity to sell real estate to Gucci in the metaverse. Um,
What I think is really cool is that you came into this topic like being relatively fresh to it, and you did a
yeah,
bunch of research
yeah.
to get up to speed. You just talked about these different gold rushes. So you have the metaverse, you have crypto and Web3, and now let's call another one being generative AI. After doing this research, where would you put generative AI in kind of like the leaderboard of where you actually see the most real world applicable opportunity?
I think generative AI, I think it's really fun. I don't want to run around looking like a Lego in a land talking to people in what feels like a chat room. Like, the the practical applications of generative AI, given how nascent the technology is really impressive given like how much people are talking about it. And with the metaverse, I feel like it's still so much more speculative and something that even more money is getting poured into without me having any like I have absolutely no interest in, again, like running around looking like a Lego, not living my own life. It's hard enough for us to get off of our phones. I don't this is this
You
is
wouldn't look
this
like a
is like
Lego,
these are
Sophia.
that's what
You look
you
like
look like
a normal computer person.
in
But
the sandbox. No, not
it'll
yet.
get better. No, I
It will
think
get
yeah. Let's
better.
back up for what I want to back up just for a second to explain based on even some of the stuff I've learned of what is generative AI. And I thought there was that article you shared, Alex, around Sequoia wrote, which I thought was very good. And the way they framed it, which I thought was very easy to understand, was like, look, computers are great. We know computers are better than some things at humans. If you want to do a really hard math computation problem, it's been like for 30 years, computers have been better at like lots of fast calculations. And then there was a little bit of this like, can they analyze problems? Can you use AI? Can you run regressions? And we all sort of know that one intuitively. But the idea that they could write better or make better pictures, that seemed like total sci-fi shit until now. And that's what, when people say generative AI, they mean AI that can actually make something. And typically, so far, it's been in writing and it's been in pictures, but there's a bunch of other use cases. But anything you could imagine, and it's been pretty surprising, I think, at least to me, that like you wouldn't have expected. The first thing was like, fine, mathematicians didn't have jobs anymore theoretically because computers could do their jobs. Now it's like, wait, artists are next? That's strange, but that's kind of what it's been. But I think so just so anyone listening, that's what generative AI is. It's something that generates using AI. And there's even more categories of AI, which I was not aware of, that you could think of all the different things a human can do really well that then can a computer start to do it better typically using AI.
It is such a deep rabbit hole, and I think that definition is super helpful. I think the other question beyond what is generative AI is like, why are we talking about it now? Because this isn't actually new. There's been so much work around generative AI that's happened basically since OpenAI, which was once a nonprofit, now it's a for-profit. It was co-founded by Sam Altman from Y Combinator and Elon Musk, who everyone knows, and four other founders. They've been working on this idea of ultimately getting to AGI, which is wait, what does it stand for again?
Above
AGI
my
is
pay grade.
wait, now I gotta look it up because their whole goal, like, so AGI, of course, I look it up, and it's all about adjusted gross income, artificial general intelligence. Basically, the notion of a machine that has the ability to learn and reason, as well as the median human being. That's like how Sam Altman defines it. So they've been working on this since 2015. Why is it all of a sudden a huge thing? I think there's one piece that is it's officially in the zeitgeist because of the applications you can do with it. And then there's one piece of technology is actually in a place where it can be usable and practical. So even if you look at Exploding Topics, which is one of these great sites that you can view kind of trends and come up with business ideas, look up OpenAI on Exploding Topics, and it's up 1,900% in search volume in the last 2 years. And at a time in especially the venture landscape where it is really freaking hard to raise venture funding unless you're Jesse Pujji and have a business like Kahani. It's really hard to raise money. But I would say, going back to Sophia's point about gold rushes, investors are plowing capital into generative AI right now. Jasper AI just raised $125 million at a $1.5 billion valuation. Jasper, Sophia, we'll talk about it in a few.
It's only 2 years old, by the way.
2 years old, and I believe it was their seed or their Series A.
Yeah, it was their first round of funding. Amazing.
Yeah, and what they help businesses do is basically create content marketing and articles, web articles, etc. Then there's Copy AI that's similar. We're going to actually play around with this as a group in a few minutes, so make sure to stay tuned for that. They raised $10 million in October, and there's just, the list goes on of these generative AI companies that have raised. I just want to point out there's basically two big things that have made this like the moment for generative AI. The first is processing power. So the big thing, without getting too in the weeds, is that there's like kind of two big models that OpenAI has developed, these language learning models. There's GPT. I don't know what the acronym stands for. I didn't memorize it. And then there's DALL-E. And the way I think of the two is DALL-E allows you to put in text to output images, and GPT is text to output more text. And what happens is the way these models work is they've ingested basically, especially GPT, has ingested basically the entire internet. I believe it's 175 billion data points. And so when you input something and it generates text based off of that, it's referencing billions of data points. And so my understanding is processing power for computers and in the cloud finally got to a place where this can be done relatively efficiently. The second is that a lot of this technology wasn't open source before. It was kept in private beta. For a while, OpenAI was only allowing Microsoft to use their technology, and it was recently open to the public. So now that people can access the API of these, really complex models, an amazing amount of entrepreneurship and creativity is happening.
Yeah. I think one of the funny things, there's a couple of pieces of this that was kind of funny when I think about it. One is, most people think AI, they think fancy technology and like whatever. The reality of all AI, just so everybody knows, is all it's doing is looking at data. Like, it just looks at lots of data and uses a bunch of historical things that have happened, like which word follows which word in a sentence, and then predicts that that's likely to be the word. And I think that's, everyone, by the way, deals with AI every day, which is when you're texting, the auto suggest is essentially an AI. It's basically saying, based on the sentence you're writing, here's what I think is going to be the next word that you should put. And then, of course, they give you a few options. And then, by the way, on average, which option you pick, they then learn, and the learning gets better and smarter. One other crazy one that you mentioned, those two, just another one I want to throw out that's come up in Kahani actually specifically is Copilot that GitHub built. And I think they're actually using GPT-3. I'm not sure. But what they've done is GitHub has every code repository from almost every company, huge code repositories. And Copilot sits there with a programmer while they're writing code, and it auto suggests the code that they should write. And my lead engineer was like, Jesse, this code is the same or better than what I would write. And
your lead engineer is like, Jesse, please do not fire me.
He's like, lay me off.
Well,
what's my severance package?
Dude,
Can we
his
negotiate?
Output is like doubled or tripled, and he still makes certain judgment calls or whatever. But like the other thing he shared with me, which is like, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced not having your auto suggest on your phone, but you're like, fuck, what is this? Like, it's clunky, right? Like I turned
it off on my Google search engine because I don't want people to see what pops up if they are looking over my shoulder.
But he went to me, Jesse, and he goes, Jesse, Copilot is starting to be that thing where when I'm writing an email or a message, I'm like frustrated that it's not just finishing what I was going to do anyway, because I'm so used to now when I'm writing code, it's finishing what I'm gonna write. So his like brain, he wants to visualize it everywhere. And you can just tell that when that happens, it's game over for like a tech becoming.
There's a tweet by, I believe, Naval Ravikant for sure, about kind of the timeless skills of our generation that will allow people to build great things. And two of them, I believe he talked about three, but two of them are engineering and storytelling or content creation. So the ability to build distribution because of the leverage of the internet. You create one piece of content, that content doesn't cost any more or involve more work, but it can now be seen by the entire internet. Same thing with engineering, right? You ship code and it can be accessed by many people. It's crazy to think about the leverage that is created for not just entrepreneurs, but professionals in these timeless skills that now you can potentially be 50% more efficient at.
I think there's efficiency, but I think there's also, what it's taking care of for us is, for the most part, the baseline. How creative the software can be, I think, is still debatable. And just like in our lives where when, financially we feel stable, we're able to think about higher things like taking care of other people in our lives or having a purpose or being creative. These are all privileges.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of The Crazy Ones. If you're an entrepreneur or a builder and want more great startup content, make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.